Hi, everybody. I'm really glad you're joining me for the pitch session. I'm Caitie Flum. I'm an agent at Liza Dawson Associates. I represent YA middle grade, all genres, and then some adult stuff to women's fiction, some mysteries, romance, stuff like that. And I'm really excited to talk to you about all the elevator pitches and show you and kind of talk through them. But I wanted to start off by talking about what an elevator pitch is. And why they're so important. An elevator pitch is going to be really, really short. Kind of think of it as if you were in an elevator with an agent and they were like, tell me about your book. It's your 1 to 2 sentences where you can do that. You're usually not going to be in an elevator with an agent, so it's not something that comes up very often, but it's really useful to have it. It's a great thing for all those times people ask you what's your book about. It can help you write blurb copy. It can help with, all of the different types of things that you have to write. It's really good to have. It can also really help you kind of craft that hook that you're going to want at the beginning of your query. So it kind of does all of that. And then it's also, just something that's good to be able to figure out because it really makes you have to get that short, quick, great way to describe your book, which is really, really hard. So if you can do the elevator pitch, it can be used in so many different ways. Great elevator pitches for my clients will often come to be in the letter that we end up doing to editors, or it'll be used in pub copy. It can get used all over. So pardon my coughing. I've been talking a lot today, so that will try not to happen too much. I'm going to dive right in and I'm going to do a screen share so you can read along with me. I'm going to just quickly go over look through it, point out things that work, things that don't. I'm going to be going a little fast because I want to get through as many of them as possible. And some of them I might just, read through it and say, that looks great. So that's totally normal. I might also point out when things are a little long for an elevator pitch. So with that, let's get started. I need to make sure I can figure this out. All right, so I'm going to start right from the beginning. This first one, so I really like the ex-CIA angle because it's very specific and it does a good job of describing. I would say it's a little bit long for an elevator pitch. There's kind of a lot going on. Kind of the real elevator pitch is the first part. Kind of except Lucy doesn't know this. I think it could probably end there, and I'm intrigued. But as you keep going on, it gets to be a little much. There seems to be a lot. There's a lot of this repetition of the Legion, the Legion, the Legion, the Legion. And that makes it a little hard for me to follow. But overall, it sounds really cool. The other thing I'd say is I'm not calling it a YA spy novel just because that's not really a genre and you want to be specific. YA mystery, YA thriller, probably more thriller. But, overall, that one's pretty good and does a good job of showing everything. Automatically, this Fury of Stars, it's got a really, really great comp. It has one very current book that is not like the biggest book ever, but did really well, meaning a TV show. You can always use it one TV show or one movie in for your comps. I will always encourage that. So, that is very exciting. Immediately, I'm like, I need to know more. The twins aspect is a really great thing to show. Very cool to always see dynamics of twins. And I would say this pitch for Fury of Stars is a really good example of an elevator pitch. So the things it has is that great comp, a clear setting. You know, it's on a space station that orbits a planet. It has a heist. So we got a heist novel. We got that. We got the characters introduced. You know everything's going on. And then you get what the conflict is. Disaster, only mechanic to fix the stations, questioning alliances, high stakes, everything with it is great. Like, I'd love to see that. That sounds awesome. Super fast pace, just great example of one. All right. And for the next one, that is Discord. So I would say I had a question earlier about how do you get kind of the own voices into your pitch or your query letter. Having that as a subject really works. So again, you know, something very interesting and something that I'm personally looking for. So putting it in is always a good thing. So with this one, again, I think there might be a little too much information. And I know that can be really tough to balance. But I feel like the elevator pitch is that first sentence. I know we put a max of 150 words on this, but if it's really an elevator pitch, it's going to be short sentence, maybe two. This has a little extra, and you know, it gets to be a little long. So I would say for a quick pitch, you could probably just have it be that after rescuing a newborn condemned to death by the priesthood, 17-year-old Caitie must decide if he'd rather get torn apart fighting monsters or be executed for blasphemy. Like, that is so hooky and so good that it's really well done. So these extra details are interesting, but I feel like it adds a little too much. The long lost twin brother aspect has me wondering a little if it feels kind of cliche, but I would still want to take a look based on that. I'm noticing a lot of sci-fi and fantasy in these, which is great. It's super awesome to have. Here's another great example of putting in, you know, the diversity right away, just saying it. I like that a lot. I would say one thing you're going to want to take out of something like this. So it has, in this totalitarian country, the poor, the plebeians are forbidden to feel emotions. The rich, the patricians, administer a vaccine to the plebeians through food, generally medicated to inhibit emotions. That's got a little too much in the names. It feels a little bit clunky. Another thing is this is what you're going to be saying out loud. So you can just maybe say, name the poor, but not the group for the rich. And then there's also the emotives, which is the third group. So by taking out those names from fantasy and sci-fi, it can really help you get the kind of right balance. Then it has, you know, Liv sounds like an interesting character. There's actually, so it's Liv once and a couple times and then live. So do look out for typos in this. I never pass because of you know, one or two typos, it happens, but it's just kind of something to think of. But I would say you really want to look at the repetition too. So it has an emotive, Liv hides her emotions every day. If anyone finds out, she will be taken and her mother killed. Liv has made it her final evaluation without detection, but this time she is taken. And then it has again, systematically kill her people or be killed. It's a little too repetitive. So you want to look out for that language that repeats so close, especially if you take a look at this. Taken is right above taken, and the killed is right above killed. So it's little things like that that just make it a little, not harder to read, but make it so it makes me pause. And I think that whole part with Liv has made it, those sentences could be taken out. You have the stakes of she'll be taken and her mother killed. And then the last sentence kind of reword the killed and taken. It's there again. And killed's there again. So look and really pare that down. So this is a great concept. I love the concept, but it needs that little tweaks to make it really work. All right. Looking at the first middle grade. This one again seems to have a little too much information. It has a lot going on in just these few sentences. Let me just scroll back up to the top. So it does have just a few sentences. And this one feels like it has a little more than just a few. So it's telling me a little too much. This feels like it's your entire middle part of your query instead of your hook. So cut that down to just two sentences that really show what's special with it. And that's more the elevator pitch. All right. So this next pitch, what dreams may come true, has a lot of really cool things in it. And that's kind of your whole goal for an elevator pitch. It has singing to the stars and hearing them sing back, conversing about the myths and legends that show up in her dreams and how the dreams can sometimes come true. Hearing that gives such a good picture of what it's about. And then it has the twist, the nightmare that kills her best friend's mom. I think it could stop there and be a good elevator pitch. But I don't think it has to. It brings them to a whole different group, race of people who can do things and has myths and memories, and really shows all those layers of the story. And that just does a really great job of it. It's a really good example of how to get something that's so big into a scope that's down a little. I've noticed a lot of stories with fairies in it in these boards. I spent a while in them yesterday, and it's really interesting to see how everyone pitches theirs a little bit different. So it's really all about adding those specifics and showing what makes this different from everything else. This one has cast, so that's automatically something that's interesting. Kind of reminds me of a lot of different things, including Red Rising. And then wingless are humans, stolen as infants from another world to serve. That levels this up. It goes to be like, oh, it's a fairy story. It's might be similar to other things, to something completely new. So really strong, really high stakes. Failure means death for Rin and her allies. 2 choices, serve or die. Rin has no intention of doing either. That's a great last line. Fairy stories with fairies aren't really my thing, but this just sounds so creative and new. And having a line like that at the end can really, the whole goal is to make the agent, the editor, whoever you're talking to, need to read more. And that completely works. So this is a dual POV, but it's not really focusing on the dual part. It's very much on Ace. So Ace says this, Ace says this, Ace meets John, friendship blossoms, but it still feels very much focused. A good way to do a dual POV is have, this is who Ace is, this is who John is, and then the conflict. One great thing with having something that's what romance is, you're going to have to follow certain beats. So use those beats in your elevator pitch. I really like the idea of someone kidnaps Ace and leaves behind clues, and it turns into this fast pace. And it makes it kind of go past the YA romance, which you need more than just the romance. YA romance isn't that big of a category right now. Most things are contemporaries with romances. This seems like a fun way to blend the two really well. I like that it says that it has a First Nation sensitivity reader. It makes me think that this person came to it from a really good place. They've been thoughtful. They would be open to more sensitivity reads, just because this is one of those areas where I feel like if it's not something that's on voices, it needs to be done very carefully. So having that line in there is a really good thing. So it just needs a little work, but it's on its way there, and it sounds like a compelling story. So this one, The Secrets of Ring, has the problem with it is it feels like it's trying to hide too much from the person they're talking to. So it has most valuable weapon, has been taken from her family and forced to use her ability to reveal terrible secrets criminals hide. Be more specific about that ability. What exactly, how does it work? Just to put in like 17-year-old Green Robbins has been taken from her family and his FBI's weapon to whatever it is. Because right now I'm just a little confused, and you really don't want to be confused after an elevator pitch. So it's very confusing right now. And the secret of her own and facing a choice, they just seem a little bit cliche. And I'm not saying that the story is. The story sounds like it has a lot of creative angles, a lot of interesting things happening. But having some of the wording, it really needs to be specific to just your book and some of that thing I've heard before. So that one, try to add more of the specifics and make it so that it can't be about anything else. Um, I'm really, really impressed that this has correctly pinpointed 1991 as middle grade historical. Awesome job. Historical for the middle graders, that is historical time period, even if it makes me feel very, very old. So good for you on that. I do think that there is a little bit too much in this because you have a lot of characters mentioned. I know in queries, I always say, 3 characters max: protagonist, antagonist, best friend, or love interest. So 3 people. But this feels like a little too much. So kind of keep out, and they have reporter dad as well. So try to focus on Nora Lee and keep it on that. I like Lewis, I like that inclusion, but I feel like you don't need that in here. It's better to save it for the query. And it also feels like that switch to the discovery of 1,000-pound live bomb is very sudden. So I would say, and it goes against the quieter stories amidst war. So I would try to reword and have a little bit more attention to something like that being possible there. And then it won't feel quite as jarring. But overall, it sounds like a really cool idea. It just needs some tweaks. So this next one actually needs a little more specifics because it has about a high school girl who thinks she killed her best friend in a drunk driving accident. You should put the high school girl's name because there's a lot of she. A new girl shows up who says it wasn't her fault, wasn't an accident. When more kids start dying, she has to find out what happened the night if she hopes to save anyone, including herself. So just by not having any names, it kind of has the pronouns being very confusing. I think I know who the she is each time. I think it's the original high school girl, but it's lacking that clarity. Also, a little more about either more kids start dying or, how it was an accident. This actually doesn't have enough information. So expanding it a little will really help. So if light should come, this sounds like it's got a lot going on in a good way. It's to the point. It's a little longer, but I feel like everything follows each other well. And I'm wondering if there's a little too much information with, the sister got pregnant and died, blames himself, crushing with grief. Now family has returned, pile of judgment. And then it kind of goes to something completely different. So I think you might be able to cut out some of that first paragraph. But overall, it's strong. I don't have too many comments. It's one of those things that I can see people who would like it. It's not for me, but it's got a great comp, and maybe just trim it a little bit for an elevator pitch. So for an elevator pitch, this one, the Ghost of Grand Ole Opry, it feels a little long. It feels like it's too much what's in just a regular query. I like the who can turn a nothing story into a $10 tip faster than you can reach for your wallet. But it just goes on a little more. I would say that you would want to more focus on overcoming fear, reuniting a ghost, the time, kind of trying to cut the cleverness. So you want the 12-year-old tour guide, what he wants, and what's keeping him. So kind of like I said, like I like the wording of that, but that's more for a query than for this. So I would just cut that down a little. So for the window seat, this is fine as a quick little elevator pitch, but it doesn't really have any more details. It just has nervous about starting 5th grade. Her best friend starts acting different and joins a popular crowd. She must survive on her own. What else is there? It sounds like a lot of other things and doesn't draw me in enough. So you need to find out what makes this different and showcase that. That's all what it's about, is making you need to read it and having it be different. The Witch Cursed Woods looks good. Not really my kind of thing, so it's not like, oh, I have to read this right away, but it's solid. It hits all those points. Overall, really good pitch. For this one, I would take out, which is the proper name for a genie. You do not need that in your elevator pitch. You probably don't even need it in your query. I think people either know what it is or can figure it out through context clues without needing that explanation. So don't kind of talk down to your agent or your reader for that. I would also cut, so she embarks on a thrilling journey battling magic. I would take out the thrilling journey. You don't want to tell us it's thrilling, you want to show how it's thrilling. So, I mean, she battling magic, her emerging unheard of power to grant her wishes and dangerous trials. That part is good, but kind of that extra stuff you don't need. So this is already short, but you can cut it down even more and it'll be super hooky and catchy and the perfect elevator pitch. This one seems short. I know it's a sentence and then says what it is, but I actually think it's great. It has witch hunters, that its own voices. I think it's enough saying the autistic Ebba. It has selling her art to the demon, the death match, a courtship, like everything, and that's great. It's amazing. That even would probably work for a Twitter pitch. So good job. I really like that one. So for this, you probably don't want this first sentence. I just don't think it's specific enough for the comps. It doesn't really give exact ideas of what it is. So I think the next part is a better start. You know, take out that first sentence, and this really works. And I think that it's a great example. So, good job. So, I would say the one thing I would change in Gravity and Monsters is the color changing rock like creature is just a little confusing to picture. So I'm trying to picture it. I get a picture in my head of what I think of as color changing rock like, and then how it'll be, how it's a friend, and I just can't really picture it. So try to be a little more specific there. Also, are there other stakes? Because that doesn't quite seem high enough for a science fiction. So think about those things, and that will definitely help. You know, this of the Seeking Sarah Sterling, perfectly good. I don't really have many comments. It gives a good sense of who she is and what happened. So that's just a strong one. All right, so this has too many parentheses. You don't need to explain everything. It just kind of makes it feel a little too long. So Bryn always thought she'd be frozen for her future spouse, but instead she's accidentally linked to Matthew, the first person ever frozen for the program. He's the son of the man who created the system and a secret poster boy for the rebel group fighting against the government. Together they commit to exposing the mystery behind the creation, and the mystery Matthew's father kept secret by silencing his own son. So get rid of those extra details. You can reword it like I just kind of said, or just change it up a little. So this is a little long. I would say you definitely, if you're going to put in comps, Outlander meets Dickens are both kind of older titles in both age and how long they've been around. So try to find some things that are a little more current. There are some YA time travel or alternate histories, so look for that. I would also just try to cut this down. It feels like there's a lot of details, and you know, you can just have something with the parents disappeared in the night and has to follow the clues they left behind. The rest of the things in between there felt like extra details that I don't really need to know for a pitch or a hook, but it's more what you just want in your query. So cutting that down would really work. Then the trusting no one line is good because you make it specific. And then having it that you can't even trust yourself is a great way to end it. So just cut out some of that stuff at the beginning, and I think this works really well. Hope Taylor and the Pandora Curse. This one's just great. I have nothing other than that. It's a great elevator pitch. So good job. This does feel a little long. I think part of that is that it starts with the river monster is terrorizing the region. It rises from the water at night, plunders, murders, and maims, leaving a path of destruction in its wake. And then you go to the main character. So I would start with the main character. And kind of say she's self-conscious about her abilities, and they certainly won't help her against a monster who's plundering, murdering, and maiming, leaving a path of destruction in its wake. You kind of don't need the part about the region. So kind of just cut that down. Don't need, I think you can just say, magical sword. It just has a little too many details that make me wonder what directions it's going. So kind of cuts down to the things that are most important and most interesting and work on that. Especially because you have things like Jack can't do it alone. She must learn to embrace her insecurities and accept the help she needs, but there's no kind of hint at who that is. So trimming it down. I know that's not very specific, but it's hard for me to really imagine what this is like, so it's hard to give specific advice. All right. Overall, this pitch seems pretty good. I would kind of cut some of the details about the rare opportunity to compete against world champion, the catch, all of that, and go into the 12 recruited. That's what really kind of makes it special and stand out. So you can cut that kind of beginning part and just go into that, and I think that'll work better. I would definitely take out that this story highlights family, friendship, humor, and when you least expect it, being able to do things you never thought possible. That's not kind of the point of a pitch. You want to end it on something hooky, so that's the and Mapletown along with it. So the rest of it really works. I would say the one question I have is how old these characters are, because it has everyone getting ready for the high school homecoming game and parade. So I think it would be helpful to know if they're in high school or not. I would assume no because it's middle grade, but I think having that specific will really help. And just cutting that last sentence. I would cut the first sentence here and in a world where is very cliche. So try to find a weird way to reword it because I'll automatically go into that kind of cheesy voice. In a world where everyone can do magic. And that just feels like it doesn't really match the tone of most books. So definitely find a different way to say it. I like that the character can't do spells. It has to find a way to kind of try. I do like the dragon aspect, the wish aspect. Science and engineering is great. But I think there's a little too much detail. So all of these little things for this purpose of an elevator pitch is a little much. So I would cut out you know, the MacGyver-esque flair, I would say trying, like, even the specifics are a little bit much. I'd love it to be able to tell you exactly, because I like the idea of escaping from goblins using electromagnets. But it ties it down. It makes it a little too hard to kind of grasp everything in one. So cut it down a little. It's a really cool concept, and I think that you can get it into a hooky 2 sentences. I think that's the thing that's tripping me up the most, is because it seems like it should be a very fast hook. For historical to narrative, this looks really good. I would have a couple of questions, but nothing that should be addressed in here. I just think it's what a historical dual POV should be like. So good job. I think you definitely want to take out that it's a diverse 96,000 word, because that word, if you're just saying diverse, it's not really helpful. Specifics are good, but not the blanket statement. And I also think that you don't want that it tackles. You want this to be quick, snappy. And the first things in dying from the plague, you can survive it and be forced to become a mercy killer. That's a great opening. You want to start with that. The rest of this is great. So good job. This pitch seems really good. I want to say that Deliverance hits all the points, shows the stakes. Good job. So this one feels a little confusing just because there's not quite enough. What's the husband lying about? The perfect cup of coffee kind of throws me off. I just feel like it needs a little more. I know contemporaries are probably the hardest thing to do elevator pitches for, because they can feel like, well, it's kind of things like real life, but you just want it to be a little more hooky. I would definitely take out, so if you want to have the comp, just the red pyramid meets I survived. You can cut off the other part. The rest of it is good. I don't really have many comments. That choice seems fine. I'm going to kind of just, since we don't have much time left, just kind of go through and see if there's anything. I'm just going to read through them if there's anything to point out. So if there's not, I'm just going to go past. So for the dolphin nexus, I would cut that last appealing to fans, and I would add a little more detail. I don't think that the second sentence does enough to really grab someone in. So kind of finding a little more about this mythic past, I think would be good to, or the powers to put in instead. I would add more specifics to why kick a moo cow. The teaches her about family love and what it means to be brave enough to follow your dreams. A big idea, but it just doesn't feel like it stands out enough. So try to add in a little bit more. That's a really long sentence. I would cut it down for sure. It kind of just keeps going. So find out ways to shorten it and really focus on what matters the most for that from Snow and Ash. All right. So I'm going to switch back over, possibly. All right. So I know that was fast and I didn't get to everything, and some things comes really quick. I just hope you kind of got an idea of what an elevator pitch should be, that you really needed to be quick and pithy and memorable, because this is kind of the thing that you want people to always be thinking of. They're great for so many different things. Some of these were a little long. I would say the no more than 150 words should have been cut down even more. You want to try to get them to a sentence or two. There was some really cool stuff in there. Not everything for me, but everything that I looked at had parts of it that were really interesting and creative. So it's finding that creative part of your story and highlighting it. And that's all you really need to do for it. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at CaitieF, and it's CAITIEF. Feel free to ask me any questions on there. I love talking to writers. I'm probably going to do an Ask Agent sometime soon, just because I've had so much fun while being here. So I hope that was helpful. Keep up with your elevator pitches. Some of those might be really handy if you are a marginalized writer and you take part in DB Pit. You might want to take a look at those again and use them. It was great talking to you all, and I hope you have a good night. Bye.